In this screencast, we're going to look at the games blocks in Microbit. So we can create a sprite, we can have a score and do various different things to the score, like setting it to 0, changing it by 1, and so on. We have a game over block. We can turn the sprite around if on edge bounce, which is similar to what we've seen in Scratch, or what you might have seen in Scratch, and then we can move the character, and there's lots of different things we can do, but these are just some of them. So we're going to use a project to demonstrate some of these concepts. So in the project, we're going to have 4 different things happening. In the onStart, we're going to set the score to 0. We're also going to create a sprite called Tom at position 2, 2, so that's right in the middle of the microbit. And then we're going to create a sprite called Jerry at position 0, 2. The A button is going to move Tom, and we're going to repeat this 4 times, so it turns Tom right by 90 degrees, pauses, then moves him by 1, and then pauses. So it's just going to get him to move around in a square. On B button pressed, we're going to repeat this one 8 times, and this time we're going to turn Tom left by 45 degrees, and that's why we're doing it 8 times, so it'll bring us round in a circle again, and we're just going to pause, move him by 1. So that's going to happen, so it's going to bring him in a circle really around. So that's A and B are going to move Tom, and then A plus B together is going to move Jerry. And what we're going to do here is, while the score is less than 10, we're going to move Jerry by 1, and we're going to pause, and then we're going to check if Jerry is touching Tom, we'll change the score by 1, and then eventually the score will no longer be less than 10, and that will give us a game over. But if Jerry is on the edge, we're also going to bounce him. So what's going to happen with Jerry is he's just going to move over and back along y equals 2, so it's just going to be right along the middle of the microbit. He's going to go over and back, and then Tom is going to be moving in circles around him or in squares, and as they collide, we're going to change the score by 1, and then while the score is less than 10, we're going to keep moving Jerry, and once it gets to 10, then it is going to be game over. So there's a lot going on in this project. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the onStart. So we'll do each of the blocks one after the other. So I'm going to just get rid of the forever. So we'll start with the onStart. So the first thing we're going to do, and I'm just going to go down to the games block here, it actually has a score already incorporated into it. So here we can set score to 0. Now, when I was looking at this first, I created my own score variable, but actually if you use the score variable here, it just gives you just a few other things, and when we're testing it, I'll show you some of the things that it gives you. You can of course use your own score variable, but what happens here is when we're changing the score, it actually makes it visible on the microbit, and we'll see that when we're testing it later. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the score to 0, and then we're going to create the sprite for Tom. And in that case, we are going to, so here we're going to create a variable, and we're going to make a variable, and we're going to call him Tom. Sorry, I'll just make that not capital. So we'll just create Tom, and we're going to set Tom to, and if we go to game here, see the way we can create a sprite. So here we're creating a sprite at x2, y2. So that's setting Tom right in the middle of the screen. And then we're going to create another variable. Just go back up here. And I'm going to make another variable, and we're going to call it Jerry. So we're going to click OK on that. And then we're going to set Jerry to, and we're going to go back to game again. And we're going to create a sprite at, and this time we're going to set it to 0, 2. So that's going to put Tom here in the middle, 2, 2, and it's going to put Jerry here on the left hand side at 0, 2. So what we're going to do is we're just going to move Jerry over and back along this line, and then Tom is just going to move around in different ways. So this is just the onStart block, so that's just our initialization. Remember we talked about initialization, so we're setting our variables to various different values. So the next block we want to code is the on button A pressed. And what we're going to do when the A button is pressed is we're going to repeat 4 times. And then we're going to turn Tom right by 90 degrees. So if I go into game here, there is a item turn right by. So I'm just going to drop that in there. And instead of item, I'm going to say Tom, and we're going to turn it right by 90 degrees. Then we're going to put in a pause, because otherwise it'll just happen too quickly. So I'm just going to bring in a pause for 500, and then I'm going to go back to game, and I'm going to Tom move by 1, and I'm going to pause again for 500 milliseconds. So that's what we're doing in the button A pressed. So if I test it here, see the way it's just moving around in a square, and if I press it again it'll do exactly the same thing. It's turning right each time. So that's the very first one. So we have the on start where we've done our initialization. Button A, we're moving Tom in one particular way. We're next going to code button B and we move him in a slightly different way. Just wait for that to finish. So when the B button is pressed, I'm just going to duplicate this because actually the A and B button functionality is quite similar. So I'll just change it from button A here to button B. I'm going to repeat 8 times rather than 4 because I'm going to turn by 45 degrees, but instead of turning right, I'm going to turn left this time. And then I'm going to leave the pause, move him by 1 and pause 500 again. So this time if I press the button B, he's going left. You see the way he's kind of going round in a circle. Okay, so that's Tom moving with button A and button B. So that's the functionality to get one of our sprites to move. So the last functionality we want to include is for the button A and B, and that's going to get Jerry to move over and back across the screen. So here if I go input on button A plus B pressed, then what I want to do is, so I want to get a while loop, and here I'm going to say while the score is less than 10, so I have a less than here, I'm going to go to game and pull across the score, which is down the end here, because I'm using the score from the games blocks. So while score is less than 10, then what I want to do is I want to move Jerry by 1. So again I go into game and I want to go back up here and I want to have Jerry move by 1. I want to do a pause so I can see what's happening. So I'm going to pause for 500 milliseconds. And then I'm going to check if on edge bounce. So again I'm going to go to the game and that, or sorry, if touching edge, and there's an if on edge bounce here. So I can say if Jerry is on the edge, then I can bounce him. And then the final thing I want to do is I want to check to see, if I go to logic here, if, and then if I go back down to game, there is a touching here, so I can pull this across into my if statement and I can say if Jerry is touching, and if I can go back up to my variable, so if Jerry is touching Tom, then I want to change my score by 1. So again I'm doing all this within the game block, and that is all of my functionality. So now all we have left to do is to test this. The last thing I need to do is just to put the game over functionality, and I'm going to put that outside the while loop, because when I fall out of the while loop then that is game over. So I'm just going to test it. So I'm just going to press the A button and that will have Tom moving in a square. I'm going to press the B button and that has Jerry moving around in a circle. And then finally I'm going to press the A plus B button, and that's just going to forever have Jerry moving over and back. I'll get, now notice there, we'll see it again in a minute. So every time it changes the score, when they're touching, just get it to move again. Just seems to be missing each other all the time. But every time it changes the score, it's going to, so you see the flash there, that's when it's changing the score. So that's one of the benefits of using the score within games, so it's very obvious that something has happened here. So I'm just going to keep on doing this. So we've had a collision again. So every time we get a collision, it's going to do that. So I'll just do it again. Got a collision again. Now obviously I'm just trying to show you what's going to happen when the game over shows. So there's a collision again. So very soon it'll get to 10. So we have a collision again. And I'm just moving them. Collision again. Collision again. So we should be close enough to 10. And once you get that, it will give you. So now we're at game over. And it shows you game over. And it shows you the score as well. So that all just comes for free. So it's probably better to use the score and the game over within the game blocks. So I hope you found that useful. There's so much you can do with the games blocks, but this is just one. So this project was quite complex in that we had a lot going on at different times, but it's pulling together a lot of the things that we've looked at over the last couple of weeks. Hope you found it useful.